Last year, the Assembly voted in favour of legalising same-sex marriage, but the ruling Democratic Unionist Party used what's known as a petition of concern to stop the reform going through. We asked the party to allow us to speak to one of their Assembly members this morning to discuss that issue, but they refused to allow any to participate. They also refused to provide a statement on any of the issues we'll be discussing. Well, we can talk to Adam Murray, who works for an LGBT organisation in Belfast and has campaigned for equal marriage. Ellen Murray, transgender woman who works for a support group for trans people in Northern Ireland. And Peter Lynas, who is the Northern Ireland director of the Evangelical Alliance and opposes gay marriage. Thank you all for joining us. Peter Lynas, first of all, why do you oppose gay marriage? The Assembly did back it, but the DUP blocked it.
I think the first thing is good morning, and it's really important that we get the facts correct. So in your report, it said it had been blocked 5 times by the DUP, and that isn't correct. There were 4 votes prior to that in which the majority of people voted against any change, and only in the final vote, the 5th time. So this has come before the Assembly 5 times, and only on that last occasion was a petition of concern used. And the reason for that is relatively simple. It requires cross-community support, and the reality is there is not cross-community support for this move. There are 3 arguments usually made. One is about rights. There is no European or UN right to same-sex marriage or to redefine marriage. The second is around love, and the reality is that love is not a human right in that way. The law doesn't legislate for love, and it always puts limits on who you can marry based on age, based on family relationships, and based on how many people. And the final argument is equality. And not so long ago, Stonewall were saying that marriage was a heteronormative concept and they wanted civil partnerships. So civil partnerships came into being. That gives equal rights in the same way as if I gave Adam 2 £5 notes and I gave you, Joanna, a £10 note, I would have treated you equally but differently. And so that is the way in which the society has chosen to approach this issue. Civil partnerships and marriage, equal rights in different wrappers.
Adam Murray, what do you say about that?
Different but equal. I mean, where have we heard that sort of policy before? Look, Peter's right in a lot of ways. We had 5 votes and we did lose the first 4 votes, and that's you know, it's a big thing to ask of the society that's come so far in such a short period of time. But we did win that last vote, and this cross-community support, which Peter's referring to, the petition of concern was created to prevent sectarian domination of one side over the other. This was a piece of legislation designed to protect equality, and equality is being denied at this point in time. It's really not acceptable, and we are not going to accept this different but equal status. If civil marriage, and remember this isn't just a religious issue, if civil marriage is something which is offered to the population at large, then it has to be offered to everybody equally, regardless of who they love, because the love between 2 adult men or 2 adult women is no different than the love shared by 1 man and 1 woman.
There's no such thing as civil marriage. That's a misnomer. You can have a civil wedding and you can have a religious wedding, but there's only one marriage, and for all sorts of historical reasons in the UK, those are intertwined with both civic, state and religious functions. So you can't have a civil marriage. There's only one marriage. So this is a campaign to redefine marriage and enforce or put views onto other people. And Northern Ireland's getting portrayed as backward in that report again by a sort of biased piece of reporting on the way in, so it was inaccurate.
But Northern Ireland, sorry Peter, Northern Ireland is out of kilter with the rest of the UK on this.
170 countries around the world have marriage between a man and a woman. About 20 countries have recognised a different form of marriage. And so it's out of kilter with Scotland, England and Wales, but it's not out of kilter with the vast majority of countries around the world. And it's not backward in that sense. It has chosen to go a different way. That is a consequence of devolution, is that Northern Ireland gets to do things differently.
Ellen, does it matter to you?
Personally, I don't think marriage equality is something that I'm going to perhaps avail myself of, but certainly it matters to the LGBT community generally in a large way. Even for folks who don't avail of it personally, it sends a signal to our community that we have equal access to the benefits of civil society. This is an issue that the state is dealing with. It's not about any religious institutions. Those have been protected throughout all of the discussions that have been happening. We're talking about the role of the state in recognising relationships and nothing further than that.
What difference do you think it would make, Adam, if gay marriage were given the go-ahead in Northern Ireland?
Well, there's that very important symbolic aspect to this, that it is about equal status under the law, that you have equal access to civil marriage, and you know, it's not actually, I think, the biggest issue. You know, we have really big problems with homophobia within our schools, and that's, for me personally, that's something I care about maybe a lot more. But
and what would you, so to focus on that then, what do you think would make a difference?
In terms of schools?
Just in terms of the sort of general intolerance that you're describing, and obviously schools are part of that.
Schools are the biggest part of it, I think. A lot of the issues which we deal with in the LGBT community, with higher levels of self-harming and suicide, higher levels of drugs and alcohol use, lower levels of good mental health, these are problems which are formed actually during the formative years of schools. And if you were to ask me what one big change I would want, it would actually be for Section 75 or some similar legislation to apply to schools, that they have to track homophobic bullying, they have to track homophobic incidents, they have to train their teachers on how to deal with homophobia, and they have to treat homophobia the same way that they would treat racism in their schools. Because right now, homophobia in our schools is actually sort of a permissible discrimination, and if we were to actually change that, I think it would have massive changes on our society.
Peter, respond to that.
I have absolutely no problem. We have been very clear. We've worked, I've been at Pride, I've been involved in discussions with Rainbow and with other groups on the ground. Absolutely clear in terms of saying homophobic bullying is categorically wrong. There is no place for that. But it is important that all sides then show how we debate this issue well. And so the last motion, for example, that came, had a very limited view of equality. It was limited to couples, only to couples. And there are already people asking, well, why can't 3 people who love each other come into a relationship? So we need to have a serious debate, properly saying, and so we can have that kind of debate here. But the Green Party has already very openly said that in the UK they want to see 3 people in a relationship. So that's an open and valid position to take. It's one that I would object to and say that is exactly our concern. That is undermining a fundamental relationship that is biologically and uniquely placed in terms of raising children.
I mean, that's obviously, it's a sort of different discussion from the one about gay marriage. But thank you all very much for joining us. Thank you for your time.